So little time, so many people to piss off. Let's go.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Football Guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
What's going on with Lamar Jackson? Like, seriously, I could just toss
Yeah.
it to you that way. The coldest of cold opens. Like, what is going on? A well-timed statement from Lamar Jackson to maybe continue to poke the chest of
Right.
the NFL.
Right. There's so much, Cease. There's so much. And yet we can go over everything we quote unquote know about the Lamar Jackson situation, and we don't feel like we understand it any more than when we started. And the story, the real story at the center of this is more of a human drama, about Lamar Jackson and how Lamar Jackson fits in the quarterback club of the NFL, right? I mean, isn't that what this is really about?
Yes.
And like you said, Cease, the development is he tweets out that on March 2nd, he asked for a trade. I think Pat Thorman pointed out that's also when Rashad Bateman was angry on social media. And it was right before John Harbaugh was going to speak at the owners, coaches, whatever, some sort of meeting they're having where they talk to the media. So timing, accidental, coincidental, I doubt it. And again, even Jeff Zerbiak from The Athletic is saying, come on, just trade him. Like, there's nothing, this is a dysfunctional relationship. Again, it's human drama, a dysfunctional relationship. We've all been in them. It's probably some ongoing. I mean, it's hard. Humans are tough. Egos are tough. This is complicated. So many times I find myself saying, Cecil to Noah, people are complicated. When he asks me to explain something, I just say, people are complicated. And this is complicated, but it seems like, see, there's Martin Mayhew, and they ask him, are the Commanders going to pursue Lamar? Oh, well, free agents, we have a lot of them in 10 or 20, and we didn't go after Javon Hargrave. I'm not trying to say anything bad about Javon Hargrave, but can't you just straightforward answer the question, right? This is making everyone nervous. It makes everyone uncomfortable. What was the other development? Like some sort of exercise equipment gym salesman huckster was his quote unquote agent, and the league had to advise everybody. But again, we know about this. Know about this.
It's the stuff that we don't know that's fascinating. By the way, huckster needs to be used more in the common everyday lexicon.
Oh, there's more and more of them, Cease. It's the age of the huckster.
It's
great
to
be a huckster right now.
And he's on Twitter.
Yeah. Hucksters are doing excellent right now. So as far as where this is going, if Jeff Zerbiak is saying, come on, Ravens, it's time to just end this, then maybe we'll see something. The Colts expressed some interest, right? Maybe we'll see something. But, there's also this idea of the fully guaranteed contract, or Lamar Jackson trying to say, if Deshaun Watson, this is how it works. If Deshaun Watson set the bar here, then I deserve to be there. There's also allusions, right, to how he fits in, or how he fits into the organizational structure, or to the missed time. So there's always things we can point to say, well, it's not just the teams don't want to fully guarantee the contract and reset the bar, or it's not just that they have something against Lamar Jackson. It's like, well, look, he's missed time, etc. But I think that we can clear our minds of this, and again, go back to Deshaun Watson and think about a theme of this show, Cease, from the beginning is the NFL's quarterback thirsty. It's quarterback desperate. Always.
Yes.
And Lamar Jackson can't do much more to prove his value to a team, how much he makes a team more likely to win. And in any other context, I think teams would be stampeding over each other to get him and meet his terms. Look what the Jets are doing for Aaron Rodgers. This is late career Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, they're not blinking at what he wants paid. Right? There's not even a consideration.
They're not blinking at who he wants for his coach and a clown called Nathaniel Hackett, what players that he wants that may or may not be washed up. Like, they're rolling out the red carpet on top of the red carpet for 1 year left Aaron Rodgers, maybe.
Yeah. See, every time we talk about this, I come back to, I feel a little bit sad for Lamar Jackson. I just feel sad for Lamar Jackson because this kind of story playing out on a public stage is just painful. It should be more private, honestly. And I look forward to seeing how a team can figure this out, and rooting for that team and rooting for him. But I do think we're more likely to see him traded now about that this has been put out there. But at the same time, we know that we have to adjust the lenses of context, and that Lamar Jackson now felt the need to tell us this. I mean, maybe it was a thumb in the eye of John Harbaugh, but I think it was really a sign that nobody wants to trade for him right now.
Yeah, it's a sign of collusion in the NFL. The league has been uncomfortable about Lamar Jackson since he came into the league, and it makes you wonder, like, why are they more comfortable with Deshaun Watson? Like, and we don't necessarily need to answer that question.
Just look the two personas side by side, you get the answer.
Yeah, all of our listeners and viewers are very smart. So just think about that. The NFL is okay with Deshaun Watson,
right? Or
look, not okay with Lamar Jackson.
Let me bring Joe Bryant in. Hey, buddy, let me bring Joe Bryant in here. And I think Joe often is a good voice of reason, right? That's one of the things he does well around Football Guys. And he says, well, maybe it's just that there's only one. Maybe Jimmy Haslam was the only one. And, there's not another Jimmy Haslam out there to do something foolish and fully guarantee a contract for 5 years to a quarterback. But we'll see. And it's something, I'll add this as a postscript. It is something more likely to happen after the draft, right? It was pointed out, I think it was in the Zerbiak article, Cecil. It makes total sense to me that you don't trade for Lamar until after the draft because he's going to make the value of the future first-round picks go down. But if you trade for him before the draft, you're giving up this year's first-round pick, which is based on where your team's at without him.
Yes. Yep. So it's all about timing, and I guess the best way to put it is we'll be fans of Lamar Jackson wherever he lands.
Absolutely.
Is there any possibility he stays?
Well,
I don't believe so, but you and I both know plenty of dysfunctional relationships that continue.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a dance partner, and there's no. Indianapolis expressing interest is the closest we've gotten to even seeing something developing on the horizon. So, and like I said, if Lamar Jackson's telling us, "Hey, I requested a trade," I mean, the trade market's probably not that hot right now. But I do think there's a timing thing after the draft, and I do think that there is so where this runs out, that whether it's Lamar Jackson's contract terms. Or just a team saying, hey, we already came up with our plan for this year. We're doing this plan this year. We're not doing the Lamar Jackson plan. And we're dealing with human nature, Cease. So there's a chance he could be back in Baltimore because we're asking someone to do an affirmative action to bring Lamar Jackson in. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, the next question then would be, does Lamar Jackson hold out? Do we see a Le'Veon Bell kind of situation? So,
The thing about this is we're talking about the Lamar Jackson situation. It's something he's dealt with his entire life.
Exactly. Well, it's his story. This is just, in some ways, the very natural next chapter. Todd Monken's name is coming up in the chat, Cease. And this is, I think this is also from the Zerbiak article. Like, you're installing new offense. If Lamar Jackson's not there, there's a presumption that he's not going to be the quarterback. So there's so many different forces pushing and pulling on this. And all we can say is, especially because Lamar Jackson doesn't have an agent. And that brings even more unpredictability of human psychology into this. And we wait.
And we wait. We wait for wide receiver trades that aren't going to happen or are going to happen. I don't know. We've got a few names to go over, Bloom. So let's start with Nuke Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins, and what happens with his future and what happens to his asking price as we get closer to the draft and people recognize, and even Sean Payton, because it is a Broncos show, says this wide receiver class isn't that good. We're not trading our guys. This wide receiver class isn't that good. What? You just said two things. Like, we're not trading them. These wide receivers in this rookie class aren't good. So trade for us. Nuke Hopkins to start things off. What happens there?
Yeah. Arizona has to take what basically Houston got for Brandon Cooks. Eventually they just accept that. Monty Austinfort, the new GM, just accepts that. He's got traded the number 3 pick more on his mind right now. I just think where Hopkins is, what he has to offer right now, what he's due, which is reasonable on the current wide receiver market. I don't remember what it is, 30-something million over the next 2 years. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But my point is, it's not an exorbitant number. But I just think that you're not seeing him move the needle for teams. And that's Arizona's just going to have to accept that market. Now, Buffalo was a team that was mentioned a lot, and there were some allusions or innuendo, maybe even Hopkins himself. Sounds like Buffalo's out on Hopkins. And this is another one where the draft. So now we're close enough to the draft where the draft influences timing of decisions, right? And it may well be that Arizona doesn't get a team to get serious about giving up something for him. That being said, I do think Hopkins still has a lot of fantasy viability wherever he ends up. And I think it's funny to revisit that we all clowned Bill O'Brien in Houston for trading him away, but he didn't exactly change the destiny of the Cardinals.
Right. Didn't do that. And we'll see what he does for his next team. Jerry Jeudy's totally not on the trade block.
Do we,
but the wide
we
receiver
trust
class.
So do we trust them when they're saying that?
No, not at all. What that means when Sean Payton says he's totally not on the trade block, it means no one's offered him what they want. There's a price for everybody, and it's got to be a first. This team doesn't have a first or a second round pick, so it is a Broncos show. And Jerry Jeudy is probably going to stay with Denver. What's interesting to note is Sean Payton won't say much, but then he'll say too much. Usually when he's not answering you on your question, he'll give you something for something else. There's not going to be any sort of designation of X or Z or slot. So we know with Jerry Jeudy, it worked best when he was backside X. Like, why did Jerry Jeudy explode last year? It's because he was backside X. He was the first read. And they're not going to do that. So if they're not going to do that, and they're going to run the hell out of the ball, hello, it's why they're getting everybody. Are you big and can play running back? They'll probably draft Tavion Thomas. Please, George Payton, don't mess up in the draft this year. Draft Tavion Thomas. But anyway, they're going to run the hell out of the ball. So do you really need Jerry Jeudy if Tim Patrick is back? But either way, Judy's not going anywhere for now. We're in the business of gathering talent, I believe is what Sean Payton said. Yeah, until someone offers you a first, and then it's bye-bye, Jerry.
Right, if they offer a first, right? You've chronicled it on this show, Cecil. It hasn't exactly been clear sailing for Jerry Jeudy so far in his career, right?
Right.
How he's thought of around the building, relationships on the team, not A+, eh?
No.
Not somebody that a team is going to say, oh, yeah, we have no hesitation or questions. We're going to get great football out of him, and he's going to fit in well. So, yeah, first-round pick, you're asking a lot. And we'll see deadline spur activity. But there was a moment, right? The Sean McVay coach moment where you in his Rolodex. I'm going to keep saying Rolodex. Last year, it seemed like there was I'll pay a wide receiver. And Cease, you know what broke it? The Steelers getting the 32nd pick in the draft for Chase Claypool. Cha-ching. So now that creates, again, this is like the Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson conversation. That creates unreasonable expectations, right? Someone does, it just takes one, but that one can skew the thinking of everybody else, especially the sellers, because they want to get that kind of return on their investment, on their commodity. And we'll see. But I think you're right, Cease, to keep highlighting that the Denver offense we see, the season starts, it's going to be very different than what we saw before. Where does Jerry Jeudy fit in? A question that whether he's even there or not, even if he's there, Cease, like you said, with Tim Patrick, they just signed Marquez Callaway. Right. He knows his way around Sean Payton's offense. Anytime a coach brings in a player that he knows, that's significant.
Wasn't he the leading Saints receiver that final year?
He was a rookie, an undrafted rookie. He was actually, as an undrafted rookie, because of injuries and whatnot, he was the go-to guy for a little bit there. So absolutely. So, Cease, if Jerry Jeudy's on the team, is there a guarantee that he's a starter, a full-time player?
No, and then if he's not a starter, he's checked out. That's why the backside X thing is important, because if you went into this season saying Jerry Jeudy is our best receiver, he's our primary read, he's backside X, you'd be like, good, they're going to get the most out of Jeudy. He's going to be dialed in. He's going to be productive. The fact that Sean Payton is telling you, well, there's none of that. That means I don't know how you keep Jeudy dialed in.
Right. So, Cease, again, human psychology looms over all this. I love how you brought up to the very Freudian thing of Sean Payton telling you information about something you didn't ask about,
right?
And how meaningful that is. But I think that the Broncos, and it's great, we're going to get this, it's a Broncos show, and we're going to get this Cecil Lammey up close and personal view of it. It's the show within the show. How does it feel to be Cecil covering the Broncos right now? It's at least now invigorating, intriguing, because it's going to change. And you have these layers, right? We're going to talk about Trey Lance, right? We're going to talk about Trey Lance on this show today. But the question is, do you meet players halfway or maybe 90% of the way? to embrace what they do well, or do you have a more, I don't want to say rigid because that sounds negative, but a set philosophy of how you win football games, and these are the jobs, and that way we go about doing this, and you either can do one of those jobs or you can't. Now, you bring up one thing saying there's not going to be these set roles, but like you said, the significance of that is Jerry Jeudy's going to have to fit in to this offense. But then the next layer of human psychology is, the Broncos projected this out like the chess game, Cecil, like you said, that if you're not making a Jerry Jeudy friendly role just for Jerry Jeudy, chances are he's going to check out. So maybe you're holding out for a first round pick now, but that second or third round pick that you could get maybe during the draft, Broncos traded away some picks recently, right? They could use more picks. Is going to look pretty good come October, whenever now you're in one of those situations like an Elijah Moore type situation where the relationship is publicly very broken. So
I'm going to bring up a relationship that I won't get into what Bill Parcells said because Sean Payton came up under Bill Parcells, but this is a Bill Parcells, Terry Glenn situation. And if you're old enough to remember, like we are, you're going to remember how that ended.
Yeah.
Terry Glenn was talented. Terry Glenn had a ton of talent.
Right.
He just didn't mesh with Bill Parcells.
Right. So interesting things afoot. But again, I think the moment that hot wide receiver market, when you saw these trades happening, blank checks kind of, as far as draft pick return, as far as pay, that's over. And it's questionable what Jerry Jeudy represents as a commodity at this point. And again, I want to say too on Elijah Moore, I think the Jets did good to get what they got.
Yeah.
For Moore. And what do you got with Jeudy? 2 cost-controlled years, and his health hasn't exactly made you think that he's going to get full availability. And then we know once he hits free agency, you're going to have to make a decision to maybe pay a lot more than you're willing. So mostly negative downward pressure on this one.
Okay. You mentioned the 49ers, so let's get into it. Now they're rebuking. What am I thinking of here? They're doing something. John Lynch is saying no to any sort of trade calls about Brandon Ayuk. Okay, that's a discussion. The Brock Purdy thing is more of a discussion. And I still believe, Bloom, as much as that team has loved Sam Darnold, we'll see how that shakes out. But the San Francisco 49ers always make it interesting.
They do, right? On Ayuk, real quick, Cease. Let's just put the Ayuk question up and spike it like a volleyball. Would you rather have Brandon Ayuk or Jerry Jeudy?
Ayuk.
Oh God, yeah, right. Even though Ayuk had his own rocky moments in his NFL life and career. So this 49ers thing, Cease, again, we can kind of talk it to death like we did with the decision of who they were going to take in the draft when they moved up, right? Because on one hand, it's actually not surprising that John Lynch would say Purdy's the leader in the clubhouse, because actually Nick Bosa said something like he's just, you got to give him a chance to stay the starter. George Kittle said something like that. Trey Lance himself said that. Trey Lance himself said he's earned the chance to be the starter. So it's not exactly news that if Brock Purdy's recovery goes well, he'll probably start week 1. And for fantasy football, whatever. Trey Lance, we saw Justin Fields get dropped in a lot of leagues, and he still came back. So I still think Trey Lance represents a potentially explosive fantasy football commodity. But just like we talked about with Lamar Jackson, just like we talked about Jerry Jeudy, there's lots of different arms in the range of possibilities what could happen here. You could trade Trey Lance. I mean, it's at least a question worth asking. Atlanta automatically comes to mind. If Atlanta would give up their first round pick this year for Lance, okay, that's a thought, because like you said, they like Sam Darnold a lot. And what have we seen with this scheme? So again, we're at this fork in the road, just like we were with Mac Jones versus Trey Lance. Do you want a quarterback who can add value to the scheme with athleticism, or because you can just make anybody who can get in the mindset of the offense, can make it work, then just cheap out on that, bring in the Javon Hargrave, right? Bring in all these players around that. So San Francisco has a choice to make, but also it's a very reasonable idea to just go in with Lance, Darnold, Purdy. Competition creates the best outcome. And in that case, the way quarterbacks play in this offense, chances are all 3 of them will have more value next year.
Yeah, the fact that Lance would admit anything that you're not the man, like, okay, privately, sure. Don't ever say it publicly. Don't ever say it publicly. And just the things that have shooken that young man during his young pro career, it's not maybe not leading up to where you want it to for Trey Lance. And I love Trey Lance coming out of college. Like, loved him, super excited, love the fit. Kyle finally gets a real quarterback. And there's just been the arm fatigue thing, which was real.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's so many things. Propaganda is a useful tool, Bloom. But there's so many things that I've fought against. The Sam Darnold thing itself, right? I know that was a good sourced information. I know that Trey Lance had arm fatigue as a rookie that they were concerned about. Like, that's just what it was. So all this, and then like, yeah, Purdy's the man. Like, what? Like, no, you should never say that as a competitor, as a quarterback. That's just me.
Yeah. And see, what are we looking at now? Look, you can never downplay the spiritual, emotional, psychological side of player development, but especially for quarterbacks. My. Primarily, it is a mental position. And you cannot deny that emotions can skew your thoughts, can skew your process. And for Trey Lance, like you said, Cease, there's layers here of the football code and how you represent publicly, like compared to what you actually know is true, and what that says about his mindset right now. And who could blame him? And we have a really unique case here. You know, we haven't really talked about the effect. It's a good thing, right? Like, not talking about the refs, like the effect of that year. A lot of players took the year off of college football. It's going to mess up development. Or do you take players that took the year off? What does it mean about them? And we don't even talk about it. But with Trey Lance, maybe it's meaningful. Maybe it's meaningful because how much college football did he play? What, one season?
Yeah,
right?
And 2 games.
Yeah, at North Dakota State.
Yes.
And even that 1 game or 2 games he played.
One game, one season and 1 game. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily a showcase. It was a showcase for the tools, which is why he was drafted number 3. But really, there's interesting stories there. I want to say there's a story out there about like a buzzer beater he hit in a basketball game. But when you're coming up from that, it's not exactly like a football crucible like Southeast Louisiana or Miami or Texas, right? And then he hasn't played meaningful football in how long now? And how long? That's unique when you're talking about a franchise quarterback, because a franchise quarterback is someone that eat, drink, sleep football. And he has barely played in the last 3 years. And I just can't say what that would do to a player's development.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, to be sure. We'll still root for Trey Lance and see what happens there, but and then
would you trade for him, Cease? Would you, if somebody?
Yeah,
yeah, I think so.
Have a plan, and get him out there. But yeah, for sure, I'd trade for him, especially if you're Atlanta. I mean, my God, Desmond Ridder, come on, come on, we can tell the truth. We can tell the truth.
Somebody said to me on the Twitter, Cease, you guys really hate Desmond Ridder.
No,
not us particular. Just like. Nobody's giving Desmond Ridder a chance, which probably means we should give him a chance.
Yeah. Well, we are kind of counterculture, which is odd how counterculture changes over our lifetimes, Bloom. But so yes, I do love looking at like what's opposite of what everyone thinks, right? Because what everyone thinks isn't always correct. Although the human mind is so bizarre, like we would rather be wrong in a group than right by ourselves. But I always look at
the safety of the herd.
Right. I always look at the opposite. Like looks. The problem with Desmond Ridder that I have, this is just me personally, is that the tools are so easy to see. Like, it's easy to see, and he's got moxie and he's got some leadership. The tools are right there. What happens when you put it under pressure? Like, this is not fantasy football. So like that's the problem with Desmond Ridder. Like, he has yet to utilize his tools, which are massive, when he's under duress. When he's under duress, he wets the bed. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
I was going to say something else. So that's the main problem with Desmond Ridder. And the other problem is you get people who don't put any work into this that show up and be like, that guy's good. Like, oh God, just because you can see his arm. Like, it's more than that.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I get it. Look, I think they're doing the right thing. Can I take a moment out because I'm down here in New Orleans?
Of course.
Happy 328. It's a holiday here. 28-3 and all that. That's New Orleans football fans are petty, really petty. But instead of dunking on Atlanta, I do want to praise Atlanta because I do think it's rational for them to say, well, let's just throw Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke out there and just let it play out as it may. Well, let's see, Anthony Richardson or Will Levis could fall to them. Or maybe they decide to move up. Maybe they get a little bit antsy. But I like the idea of building up the team the way they have and waiting for your moment on the quarterback. And look, they may have been poised to take Trey Lance at number 4. They certainly were pursuing Deshaun Watson. So we're not talking about a team that's not doing anything. They're sitting on their hands. But they are being patient, and that they get those first-round picks, Lindstrom and McGarry. See, anytime you take 2 of a position in the first round and then you sign them to second contracts, that's a success, right? A success of the previous regime that Terry Fontenot is stamping. I think that there's some good things brewing on defense. I think that this team has a plan, and I still think that what they're doing by just throwing Desmond Ridder out there for us, the Wolves, to tear apart, it makes sense in the long run.
Yeah, makes sense in the long run. Going over some news and notes across the National Football League. Bloom, I think we've hit most of the major notes.
Yeah,
but there were some smaller notes.
Sure.
And if you visit our website, footballguys.com, and you look at our newswire, like you've got the Irv Smith landing with the Bengals. You got the Giants owner in favor of signing Odell Beckham Jr. Some of the stuff, Titans won't fully commit to Ryan Tannehill. Why would they? Pats won't commit to Mac Jones. Why would they? Bailey Zappi's probably better, and I don't even like Bailey Zappi.
Yeah.
That's just the bottom line with Mac Jones. Ooh, Mac Jones. Speaking of draft overhype, but Bloom, some of the stuff I feel like, because people are bringing up Aaron Rodgers in the chat room, I don't want to talk about Aaron Rodgers.
No,
I don't want to do that. The Lamar thing is interesting. It's fascinating. We, support Lamar Jackson, but Aaron Rodgers, just go on, man. Come on.
There's actually been developments in Lamar Jackson's story. So, Cease, I think we're to that second, in between the second and third wave of free agency, where what the moves that are going to happen are going to be minor, or at least minor in terms of the ripple effect on the team. I do think it's kind of sad. I want to step aside from the specific topics for a second and say, I kind of feel bad for the free agents who don't get signed in the first wave, second wave at this point, because the downward pressure on what they're going to get is just terrible. I mean, even these, the contracts come out from the first wave of free agency, and it's always less agents, right? It's always less than what's announced, but it's still in the spirit of what was announced. But you'll see these contracts from the second, third wave free agency, 1 year, $5 million. Well, actually, it's 1 year, $1 million, and $4 million of unlikely to be earned incentives. So it's rough out there. But just what significance there is, the Ravens signed Nelson Aguilar. In my opinion, with $3.25 million. Yeah, the Patriots, speaking of the Patriots, Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, when they signed Johnny Smith, traded for a late round pick. Hunter Henry, I guess that went okay. And Nelson Aguilar, that was bad. That was a bad free agent class, except for Matt Judon. Here's my reaction to that one. Well, we can't say they did nothing at wide receiver.
Yeah.
That's the next. It's sometimes you say it's the least I could do. This is really about the least they could do.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the least they could do. Irv Smith's interesting. He's still young. Paul Charchian always echoed these ideas that the relationship wasn't great. They weren't necessarily that happy with him. So second team, it's the Bengals. It's a potential bargain signing for fantasy. We're taking interest. Panthers getting DJ Chark. And I want to say the Lions didn't sound at all worried about replacing DJ Chark. They got Jameson Williams. Chark, it's interesting to see his price go down. One of the things I'm thinking about Cecil is, what did they get last year? What are they getting this year? Right now, last year's wide receiver market was a little hot and bothered, and Chark got 10 million. I think this year he got 5 million, but we know he can go get the deep ball, and there'll be a new quarterback. We'll see who throwing to him. We did talk about before we went on the air, the tush push. It's the Philly, the competition committee doesn't care. They're not going to do anything about it. So Jalen Hurts will get those touchdowns. Maybe the Eagles will take Bijan Robinson. Cecil, I'm taking a total left turn here. Dane Brugler, who will be on the show in a couple of weeks on the couch, return.
The best.
One of the great annual traditions, like no other. In his March 7th mock, he put in the Eagles trading down and taking Bijan Robinson. And he said, everyone around the league in Indianapolis said, no, the Eagles aren't going to take Bijan Robinson at 10. But if they trade down and use a lesser pick, and wouldn't it be just like Howie like you said, Cecil, going counter to everyone thinks. Everyone, running back. Why are you wasting a first-round pick on a running back? That's a waste. Let me show you all my charts to explain it. But Bijan Robinson, well, the question, I guess, is how good do you have to be at running back to really influence a game? Bijan Robinson is probably that good, and Howie Roseman was somebody who might realize that while everyone's saying, not worth it. Never. They'll never do it.
Right. He's going to recognize that. I also love the fact that Roshan Johnson's getting some pre-draft love.
Yeah.
And people bringing up like Darren McFadden, Felix 7. Jones. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Second day pick, maybe. It wouldn't surprise
Fox
me.
Force 5, everyone. Catch up.
Catch up.
Roshan Johnson has
30 years. See,
that
30 years since that movie came out. 30
Seriously? 30 years.
30 years.
Okay. And we still quote it. Whatever.
We're old.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's great. It's great getting old. I'm actually enjoying getting older a lot more than I thought I would.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, see, now we're really veering off. Now we're kind of in the off the rails.
Yeah, it's towards the end of the show.
So. Yeah, we're breathing. Well, I mean, it's how do you handle these twin realities, right? Like the world, in a lot of ways, the world makes more sense and it becomes more predictable. Not that many things are surprising now, right? But it does also, what goes along with that, I'm reminded, I guess the easiest way I can sum this up, Cease, is Down by Law, great New Orleans movie. So many great New Orleans movies. Down by Law, Jim Jarmusch, Roberto Benigni, Tom Waits is in that movie. And it's a good old New Orleans story. And Roberto Benigni is an Italian immigrant. And the only thing he really says is, it's a sad and beautiful world. It's a sad and beautiful world. And I think that just comes into clearer and clearer focus, and it helps you figure out where you fit in.
Helps you figure out where you fit in. And, well, where you fit in is right here with us, right? It's our community.
Right now.
Yeah. Right here, right now. I feel like there's a Van Hagar song coming up, so let's bail on that one. And
that song was a commercial success, Cecil.
It was. And they used it at the draft, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ezekiel Elliott open to a return to the Cowboys.
Sure. In other words, nobody's really willing to sign him from the veteran minimum, which is basically what the question was. It's sad. It's harsh. Cease. It's really, I know last year I brought up Derrick Henry as John Henry, the steel driving man, and you just wonder if that's kind of the nature of running backs at this point in the league. They're fungible, they're disposable. And early, that cliff is coming earlier and earlier in players' careers.
Yep. Okay. That is a wrap for today's program. A couple of reminders before we're out of here. First off, do those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Hi, Carrie. There's my sister, Carrie.
Hey.
Hopefully she's not at work. Well, I mean, hopefully she's
destroying productivity. Come on, in honor of David Dodds, destroying productivity everywhere.
There you go. Destroying productivity. That's our job, and it's fantasy football's job. All right. The rookie guide for Football Guys, Bloom. Pick it up now. Volume 2, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. And next week will be the Matt Waldman episode of The Couch, post Exhale RSP release, mattwaldman.com. And like I said, Dane Brugler's going to be on in 2 weeks. What's his guide called? The Beast, I think.
The Beast, right?
The Beast,
the Athletic.
So it's great, Cease. It's a beast. It's a feast your eyes on all of the great things there are for our kind of people that think way too much about football and see everything in football, because everything is in football. And it really is stimulating to ponder all these things as they happen in real time and see what's going to happen next.
What's going to happen next is we're going to do this. Be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.